The charade continues. The red carpet continues to be rolled out for the Harkledom. First of all, I would like to thank the fruits of Nigeria, who watch my broadcast just as avidly as every other nation. And I asked them yesterday to leave their insight into the current events, and many of you did, and I would like to thank you very much. I really do appreciate it, but I've had over 3,000 comments since yesterday's video, and it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. So I've got a lot to wade through, and I am reading them, but I will relay a couple of those comments to you later on in the broadcast today. Thank you, Nigeria. Thank you. We hear you. And if you don't want to hear about the Sussexes today, I can't blame you, but all I can do is offer you a timestamp that I shall place in the description box. Okay, so I'll address the Harkledom first, but then we will progress on to real royal matters of the kingdom. So you can skip the first segment if you wish to. But we are where we are, and we happen to be at the house of the state governor in Nigeria, where Meghan and Harry were guests of honour. I would say dishonour. And this was the affair where she rocked up in a yellow gown, the same one that she wore at the announcement of her first pregnancy. Can I just ask you, please, can I just pose this quiz? Can you imagine any other royal sibling, be it Anne, be it Andrew, be it Edward, even little Lottie and Louis, any royal sibling other than Harry, parading their totty all over the globe and all over the Commonwealth as if he's the head of it? As if Harry, who was once appointed ambassador for the Commonwealth by the late Queen Elizabeth, and then threw it back in her face and damaged the reputation of the Commonwealth all over the globe, trounces it, but then parades around acting as if he is the head of it, when the head of the Commonwealth is his father, and when Nigeria opted into it, at their own volition, opted into it. It's indiscreet, tacky, and actually, you know what I think, my dears? I think that Harry is under the delusion of a phantom reign. When I look at him toddling about like this, like he's cock of the walk, oh, I'm going to cock of the walk here and cock of the walk there and todger up here and todger down there, what I see is somebody under the delusion of a phantom reign. I wonder if there is such a thing, or some sort of malady that's named as such. Phantasmagoria Rex, something along those lines. There's got to be something in Latin to explain this behaviour, my dear, because he actually behaves as if he is the heir apparent, and that is not his brother, Grand Guillaume. He's champing at the bit, this boy, for a regency followed by a reign. That's what I see. And he's too presidential. As I said yesterday, it's been noted that he behaves as if he is a president. Actually, he appears rather influenced by the partisanship attitude of Meghan's politics. I think that's where the influence comes from. And her head of state, rival camps, rival ideologies, rivals by Jilly Cooper, coming to your screens through a Netflix lens to a tablet screen near you. Oh, Mr. President, do you think she whispers that into his ear, doing her best Marilyn Monroe impression? Oh, I wouldn't put it past her, would you? I wouldn't put it past her, my dear. But the dress, the yellow dress, which is actually in the shade Taxi Cab, isn't that wonderful? I love the name of the shade. Really stirs the imagination. Taxi Cab, because it's by Carolina Herrera. And she always brings to mind those New York vibes and the juicy apple greens and reds and taxi cab yellow. I loved that. I actually thought it was the most flattering of the trip. Hold on. When I saw it in photographs, I thought, yuck. Another clanger. Another absolute clanger. I won't be hailing that taxi cab, my dear. Pass me a hackney carriage in black. But when I saw moving footage of it, when I saw her in motion, I liked it. And I actually thought that it went down well on a rather overcast, gloomy-looking day in Nigeria. I actually thought that it brought some cheer to the occasion with its sunny yellow and its pale primroseness. There's a fly buzzing around me. As soon as I sat down to record, Mr. Fly started buzzing around me, and I can't catch him. I've got my gloves on, I haven't got my fly swat or a book to trap him in. Get away from me, get away from my broadcast. Yes, I thought the dress actually, out of the lot of them, had its place. Some have said it looks like a shower curtain from IKEA. But it was by Carolina Herrera, as I say, a silk overlay column gown in Taxi Cab. And you will have seen it before on Netflix. And I have noticed that she's been wearing more re-wears, hasn't she? Which is surely peasant behaviour for Meghan Markle. Like the peasants and the paupers, she's re-wearing clothes, the same thing twice or thrice. She's done that a bit more than usual this year compared to the year before and the year before that. Have you noticed this? Since she's been under the tutelage of Ari Emanuel, because she needs to appear as if she's one of the common people, doesn't she? If she wants to sell to them, and if they want to be all aspirational, just like her. Ugh, so calculated. Dorcas Akandi says, I am bona fide Nigerian, and I've responded until I lost count to explain that our government has a penchant for fraudulent projects, and Harry and Meghan fall smack dab into that category. There's absolutely no relevance to their visit to Nigeria, and everything about them reeks of colonial impudence. This is coming from Dorcas Akandi, a bona fide Nigerian. They need to go back to California and figure out how to handle life challenges as they see it, like adults, without involving the world. We don't care. Also, renounce all things royal if you even hope for a speck of respect. Both appear to be lost souls wandering the earth. Well, Dorcas Akande, she wandered her way into the Women in Leadership conference as if she knew exactly where she was going. Exactly where she was going. And she began, actually, by stroking her own ego. Did you see that clip? She began praising her own characteristics by claiming that they are an innate part of her Nigerianness. Did you catch this one? This was a real clonker.
Oh, we weren't surprised when we found out when you were Nigerian. Oh, no.
She was presenting it as if it were a compliment to the people of Nigeria, a compliment.
And I say that mostly as a compliment to all of you.
But actually she was, in fact, stroking her own ego and complimenting herself. It was vulgar and brazen to watch.
Because what they define as a Nigerian woman is brave, resilient, courageous, powerful, beautiful.
And she spoke of genealogy, which was a boob to begin with, because the word is genealogy, Meghan.
When I had done the genealogy and found out about my heritage, the first thing I did obviously was call my mom.
Aren't you the expert on ancient Greek and everything artificial? And she explains the typical Nigerian woman, but she's really talking about herself, as brave, resilient, courageous, powerful and beautiful. You had to hear it to believe it. As she literally drip feeds her own ego with her own honey, probably branded American Riviera Orchard. Wait for it, that'll be one of the next preserves, won't it? Her own honey drip. Ooh. You heard it here first. Success, she says, is defined by the fact that you always want to come back home. You make your mark in the world, but you always want to come back home. And the crowd go bananas for it. Oh, welcome back home. This is your true home. This is what we hear a million times over this weekend. Welcome back to your true home, the motherland. We always knew you were one of us. We always knew you were Nigeria's child. And she tells us that it's so obvious now she's there. That, you know, everything makes sense. Everything makes sense.
You have come back home.
And I've got no objection, by the way, to anyone who feels that they belong in a particular location anywhere in the world, or feels that it is their home. It happens, and it can happen to all of us in different ways. But I am uncomfortable with others in deferential mode who are celebrating it as if it is some sort of achievement of Meghan's. This is what I didn't appreciate of this constructed crowd that have been brought in and ushered in by the government and by Archewell, and who knows who else, probably Ari Emanuel. ushered in along with various squad members dotted all over the place to gaze at them as if they really are something to be revered. I mean, people talk about the royal family. Why should we worship and revere at their altar and at their feet? But at least you don't see the royal family behaving in a fact that tries to coax that out of people by being vainglorious, smug and egocentric. Not in this blatant, vulgar, brazen way. No, my dear, you don't see that. And you will know that if you see all the footage that I bring to you all the time of real royalty doing their royal duty and channeling the royal spirit. It is about others and it is about service, and that is drummed into them from the very beginning of their life. Harry might have skipped a few classes and decided that he could invent what's service and what isn't. But yes, it left me feeling queasy, to be honest with you, my dear, and uncomfortable the way that they are lauded and worshipped. And as I said, it is a white saviour complex that dawns upon me. But on this occasion she was in red. It was a red ruffle hem maxi, and I thought that especially the colour suits her better than all those putty nude affairs that she's been stringing together, although there were many angles when you looked at it that it appeared rather constrictive to my eye, too tight, and actually some visible VPL. I could see things that I didn't really want to see. So that was a bit of a shame because it was close but certainly no cigar. And then another costume change. There are so many costume changes on this tour, it'd put Britney Spears in Vegas to shame. This was a lunch hosted by the Defence Minister. And there were special thrones. There were special thrones for the twosome, for Duke and Duchess. She wore a St. Agnes strapless collar maxi, and I thought that it looked like a tubey grip bandage for arm or ankle support. How about you? Harry was wearing a cream linen tuxedo. I have said that I think he's doing very well lately, and this wasn't a complete disaster. I'm just not a fan of linen, and I thought it was too baggy on him. He certainly doesn't wear it with the same sort of panache and flair that his father does, or his brother, because they wear linen very well. Harry looks like a boy playing dress-up, to be honest. Let's pretend to be grown-ups. But I'm not a fan of linen, and there was a little bit of linen mixed into that dress that she was wearing too. Not a fan, but appropriate for the climate. Now, this is the bit that stuck in my craw, because this was the bit where British and Nigerian national anthems were played. Even if you're looking at the most positive aspects of their sojourn to Nigeria, they are hosting two private individuals, so-called private, who have come to generate publicity for themselves and for charity and for Invictus. That's looking at the most positive, shiny end of the lollipop. But at the fuzzier end, we're looking at two royals who evicted themselves from the royal family, then disgraced themselves, and in some ways are outcasted from the kingdom. And national anthems are played. This is not an assembly for a dignitary. Can we please stop trying to make it look like some sort of official affair of international diplomatic relations? How are they getting away with that? The whole place was festooned in red, white and blue, which is convenient for them because it's the same colours as the Stars and Stripes, isn't it? Harry is not a representative of the king. Just for anybody watching who doesn't understand this or might be new to observing the Harkledom versus the kingdom, Prince Harry is not a representative of the king. He is not a working royal, he is not an envoy, and he is not some sort of viceroy figure. And I told you that this was coming down the line. I told you that he had various notions about viceroydom and living a life in that sort of vein, because he cannot shake the reality that he is no longer a prince in anything else other than name. I mean, I ask you, how can those two stand there in all sincerity, dumbstruck, while they're playing God Save the King? He could barely force himself to mumble his way through it at the coronation. And now we're told that they're standing there, she stands there, listening to the song, the anthem, about the father-in-law she tarnishes, and the kingdom that she damages with her lies. Dan and Sandy Thomas say, I am seeing a pattern. Meghan has an issue with skin, showing too much and constantly going braless. This started with the see-through skirt and is now progressing. She will be buck naked in public soon. She will be buck naked in public soon. Well, that would be edgy, wouldn't it? If she was if she was tottering around in just heels and completely naked, you know what? That would be so out of the box that I would thoroughly approve, and I would think that it looks fabulous. Yes, I really would. But she's not doing that. She will be buck naked in public soon. That backless booby flopping sheet she wore at her school. OMG. Read the room, you disaster. A bra and slip wouldn't kill you either. Exactly. And then, as the tour unfolded, in yet another chapter, they were gifted Aso-Oke outfits by the Nigerian Diaspora Commission. And Meghan appeared to wriggle into it just in time for their landing in Lagos. And a little 6-year-old girl by the name of Royalty Oja, presented a stem of roses to the Duchess. Not a contrived moment at all, my dear. She plucked them from the garden herself and said, I'm dying to give these to Duchess Meghan, Mummy. Well, maybe or maybe not, because Mummy was actually the chief executive of the Nigerian charity that are working in collaboration with Invictus. So this was all very much planned, strategized, and deployed for publicity. Little Royalty evidently has no clue who this woman actually is or why she's been instructed to honour her with a rose. Used. And I saw in the press an interesting little segment that I will share with you. Nobody squealed louder than a group of banner-waving women in identical black and yellow dresses. Surveying the scene, one of Harry and Meghan's US aides hailed the great reception, adding that the couple were having an awesome time. But who exactly were the noisy women? After all, the public weren't invited to this event. Like so much of this visit, it was supposed to be private, just like military bigwigs, dignitaries, and their families. It transpired that the selfie-hunting women were by no means typical of the general public, but formed the Abuja branch of the Sussex Squad, a group of superfans who have been known to launch online attacks on those who criticise the California-based couple. To these women, Meghan is someone upon whom they can fasten their hopes, a belief bolstered by her declaration that she is 43% Nigerian. Oh, how embarrassing, and how long are we going to keep hearing this percentage, this ratio for? Vulgar, vulgar, vulgar. They unveiled a partnership between Archewell and Giants of Africa, who empower and engage the young through basketball and other sports. So a little moment of worthiness there. Rotimi Adewunmi, thank you for your comment, who said, I am what one would term Nigerian aristocracy, not the political class. It is shocking Meghan Markle went to a school to talk about mental health and left out the fact that over 100 of the Chibok girls who were kidnapped by Boko Haram are still missing after 5 years. Quite disgraceful. The trip hasn't caused even a ripple in Lagos, where I live. Majority of people are too busy grappling with survival due to the recent economic collapse in which even the middle classes have been wiped out. They are in Abuja, the seat of government, and the entire trip is carefully choreographed because of security issues. Harry and Meghan are using the minister, and I guess he is using them. The sooner they leave, the better. Finally, it is totally vulgar to wear a backless dress to the school. We tend to dress more modestly in such situations. Beggars belief. It's codswallop. It's codswallop to claim that they have been rapturously received. Many people don't even know who they are. We are 250 million citizens. Well, as usual, I'm simply blown away that we have input and insight from all corners of the globe and all fruits in the basket, and I thank you so very sincerely to those of you in Nigeria, and there were many of you, and beyond, from all regions of Africa and Europe and every single continent, and I just truly appreciate your presence here and the insight that you give us. But let's move on now, shall we, from the Harkledom to the kingdom and matters royal, and a little whisper regarding Princess Beatrice, Her Royal Highness, because whispers have begun to emerge now regarding the deployment of Beatrice, of Agent Beatrice, Princess Beatrice of York. Whispers are emerging because family members are in short supply, as you know, my dear. And it doesn't look as if the king is at this point in time wanting to enlist Princess Beatrice as a working royal. No, don't get it twisted. But he will be inviting her to events, particularly over the summer, to help out, whereas she might not have been invited to these particular events if there wasn't such a short supply at the present time. Roping her in here and there to help out a little bit and provide support, as she loved doing for her late granny. She loved doing that. But my personal whisper that I have received personally and am exclusively imparting and sharing to you, my dear, is that actually this summer might form a sounding out. What I've been told, that was the exact expression that I've been given, by the way, a sounding. But I'm fleshing that out to say a sounding out over the summer. The king is going to be watching for the reaction to her presence, and he is going to be listening to the commentary regarding her presence. And this could go on, by the way, to include Princess Eugenie, but Princess Eugenie is often based in Portugal. Not all the time, as you know, she's here a lot, but she's enjoying her home base in Portugal, whereas the Mapelimotzis have the Cotswolds home, the farmhouse, and then various other apartments and digs throughout London and beyond. They've got various options there. But there is a state visit coming up, isn't there? We have the state visit where we will be hosting Japan, where the King and Queen will be hosting the Emperor and Empress, and don't be surprised if you see Princess Beatrice popping up. And as for Queen Camilla, she's been spreading cheer and goodwill, meeting with families and medical staff who are involved with Roald Dahl's marvellous children's charity, of which she has been patron since 2017. She thanked the nurses for their wonderful work at the Royal London Hospital to mark International Nurses' Day. And she wears these summer frocks so beautifully, doesn't she? Really pretty prints and cut to sit just right on the frame and over the form. See how it's done? Really beautifully. And Roald Dahl's marvellous children's charity provides specialist nurses to care for children with complex health conditions. There are over 150 Roald Dahl nurses supporting more than 36,000 seriously ill children across the kingdom. And these are the children, by the way, that Her Majesty invites every year, when we see the footage of her trimming the tree and inviting the children over for goodies. Very nice to get a flash of our dear Birgitta Gloucester. The Duchess opened the Danish fair at St. Catherine's, the Danish church, which is actually around about my stomping ground, close to Regent's Park, which I didn't realise until I gave it a Google, and there it was. Yes, St. Catherine's, the Danish church, and the colourway was exciting to me. Something about that Birgitta Gloucester, she keeps us in suspense and then hurls a surprise at us, and I really enjoyed this sharp, juicy colourway with layered accessories to the throat and an attractive array of blooms in hand. And Regent's Park has been in the press lately because of high-performance racing bikes, and I wanted to bring this to your attention so that I could have one of my grumbly moments, because I do enjoy grumbling to you like an old fart. So you're just going to have to put up with it. But it was in the news because a woman was killed. She was 81 years old. She was out taking her doggy for a walk over Regent's Park, which is very close to my heart, and I'm friends with a lot of the trees there, as you know. I adore the place, and the thought of anything sort of violent or nasty happening there feels visceral to me, and I want to reject it. But not that this was an intentional act of violence, but somebody on a high-performance racing bike, one of these newfangled machines, was racing along at 29 miles per hour. Now the speed limit in Regent's Park is 20 miles an hour. This chap was going along at 29. A city banker whizzing along on the way to work somehow knocked her over, and she was vomiting up blood and died, not especially lovely way to die, and died. And it's extremely sad, and it's not a one-off. And I think there was another incident in Regent's Park over the last week, and I don't know the actual specifics of that incident, but I'm just using it as an example because I have sensed, and I've been meaning to tell you, I have sensed when I've been walking around as a pedestrian, a tangible shift over the past year especially. It's been coming for the past few years, I felt, but this year in particular, and it's only going to get a lot worse, I have felt pedestrian spaces being encroached upon by increasing numbers of these fast-moving couriers, delivery drivers, and e-bikes, and I don't know all the terms and names for these newfangled mechanisms, my dear. Sometimes they look like they've emerged from Back to the Future. You know that movie where they're moving about on these all electronic, I don't know, skateboards and surfboards, and they're just like cruising along. I mean, it's fantastic to see. They look like a lot of fun, but they also look very dangerous, and they come out of the blue when you least expect it. They swerve towards you, you try and escape. And I've had quite a number of close shaves over the last year, and I'm very cautious, and I'm very aware, and I'm very observant, and I'm quick to move. So every time it happens, I always think to myself, what about the poor old dears going to the supermarket, or the little ones? Because all it takes is one nasty fall for a fragile older person, or a vulnerable person, or even a fit, able-bodied person like me, to have one of these collisions and all kinds of catastrophes. And I don't like it. I don't like the encroachment on pedestrian spaces. And I'm not accusing all these types of people of behaving in that manner. I'm sure many of them are responsible. But I've been reading about this in places like Regent's Park, where it's become more like a motorway. And something has to be done, because I understand that we all might order the odd takeaway, or we've got our Amazon couriers coming. We all partake, we all add to this requirement and this need as the high street is disappearing and vanishing from our experience. We are all going to rely on these sort of deliveries and couriers and packages and bicycles and people getting to work because they want to get there sustainably and affordably. I understand all of that, my dear. All I'm saying is that we need some urgent government action here to manage it, and to encourage a bit more personal responsibility from those who are custodians of these newfangled machines. And something very royal to end upon, and that is the Duke of Edinburgh, our Prince Edward, in his role as Royal Honorary Colonel of the Wessex Yeomanry and Guards Reserve. His Royal Highness laid the combined cavalry wreath at the Cavalry Memorial. It is actually Cavalry Sunday today, that's how it's known informally. It is the day of the Combined Cavalry Old Comrades Memorial Parade, which is held annually in Hyde Park on the second Sunday of every May to commemorate those who were killed in action. And there were over 3,000 serving and former cavalrymen accompanied by their families and friends who took part in the parade and the service. And I thank you very much for taking part in my royal parade. Don't you dare rain on my parade, my dear, like those Harkles try to do, but they will always fail, because we will always channel the royal spirit, won't we, my dears? That's what we're going to do. Leave me a juicy comment, and if I made you smile, my tip jar is in the description box. See you next time, my dears. Lots of love and toodle pip.